In this video, you will be learning about global warming. Global warming is a gradual increase in the overall temperature of the atmosphere, generally attributed to the greenhouse effect, caused by increased levels of carbon dioxide and other pollutants. Later on in this video, you'll be learning more about global warming as to what it does to you and what it can do to the environment.
As you can see from this picture, eventually the ice caps will melt in the Arctics and the whole world will be flooded. Well, maybe not the whole world, that's an exaggeration, but more like a lot of places that are barely above sea level will get flooded and will not end well. Eventually, though, the whole world will evaporate of water and will turn into a wasteland, essentially.
She will be telling you the pros and cons of global warming.
Okay, the pros are Greenland will have good growing seasons, production in sour orange trees will increase, and winter-related deaths will decrease. The cons of global warming are Arctic melt, wildfire are more common, decreasing winter supply, and finally there will be a decrease in rice yields.
This is a carbon dioxide chart. As you can see, from the 1950s to the 2000s, there was a dramatic increase in the amount of carbon dioxide getting into the air. This is caused by people driving their cars, and also mills producing smoke. We can reduce the amount of carbon dioxide getting into the air if people reduce the amount of time driving their cars, and also if there was a way to stop mills from burning fossil fuels, causing carbon dioxide to get into the air. As you can see in this picture, it shows a sea level chart. As you can see, from the 1880s to the mid-2000s, there's a dramatic increase in the amount of water getting into the seas and the oceans. This is mainly because the ice caps are melting. Another thing aiding the ice caps melting is that CO2 is getting in the air, causing the whole world to heat up, which is melting the ice caps. If this continues to happen, we can lose all 7 continents, which is a really bad thing.
This is a chart of the ozone layer. As you can see, there's a dramatic drop from 1983 to 2017. We can reduce this drop from going any further from reducing the CO2 in the air in aerosol cans. The way we can reduce CO2 in the air was previously explained by Juan in the other chart. So this is a heat chart of the past century. As you can see, from the mid-1930s going to 1940s, there was a spike. And as you can see, in the near early 2000s, there's a dramatic increase that's happening. If nothing happens to prevent this, this can end up just like the 1930s and 40s.
This is our roundtable discussion where we will be discussing some facts about global warming, like how global warming increases allergy, asthma, and infectious disease outbreaks due to the increased growth of pollen producing ragweed, high levels of air pollution, and the spread of conditions favorable to pathogens and mosquitoes.
Another fact is that forests, farms, and cities face troublesome new pests, heat waves, heavy downpours, and increased floodings. All of these will sadly damage or even destroy agriculture and fisheries.
Another fact is that melting glaciers, early snowmelt, and severe droughts will cause more dramatic water shortages and increase the risk of wildfires in the American West.
Another fact is that rising sea levels will end up leading to coastal flooding on the eastern sealand, especially in Florida and in other areas such as the Gulf of Mexico. And finally, disruption of habitats such as coral reefs and alpine meadows could drive many plant and animal species to go extinct.
The best solution for global warming is to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide from getting into the air. To reduce global warming or climate change is that you need to 1. Reduce the amount of time people spend driving cars to decrease the amount of carbon dioxide from getting into the air. 2. Make sure you remember to turn off your light switches when you exit a room. And finally, 3. Reduce the amount of TV time. Leaving it off for a while is good for the environment and good for you.
And now we'll be showing you a 5-minute clip about global warming.
All of the events of the past decade All of our memories have something in common. They all took place during the hottest decade ever recorded since humans began keeping temperature records about 150 years ago. In the last decade, the Earth's temperature rose roughly 1/3 of a degree Fahrenheit. Since 1880, it's risen about 1.5 degrees. You might say the Earth's running a fever, and scientists predict it's going to get much worse. Already, we can tally the signs. Global sea level rose by over an inch during the decade, almost twice as fast as the average during the 20th century. Arctic summer sea ice declined by over 300,000 square miles, enough ice to cover the states of Texas and Kentucky. The vast majority of climate scientists say evidence for human-caused warming is clear. But less understood is exactly how this warming will change the complex interactions between our planet's land, water, sky, and the living organisms that inhabit our world. As NASA scientists improve their understanding and predictions about climate change, NASA satellites provide critical data about what's happening on our planet today, real-life observations scientists use to hone their predictions. And NASA gets a global view of 3 major pieces of the climate puzzle. How much of the sun's energy is hitting the Earth, how much of that energy is reflected back out into space, and how much is being trapped, heating the planet. NASA satellites measure the sun's energy, which fluctuates due to a 10 to 12-year cycle. Could increased solar activity be causing global warming? Satellite evidence shows us that the solar cycle has only a slight impact on our planet's temperatures. In fact, even though the last few years have been some of the warmest on record, the sun has been in a deep lull in activity. That means slightly less solar energy has been reaching Earth. And when the solar cycle ramps up again, scientists expect temperatures will rise even a little more. A second piece of the temperature puzzle is our planet's brightness. All other things being equal, a brighter, more reflective planet bounces more energy back to space. Some of the brightest, most reflective areas of our planet are those covered with ice. NASA imagery shows those areas shrinking, especially in the Arctic. As sea ice vanishes into darker ocean, our planet becomes less reflective and warms even further. Clouds also reflect a lot of sunlight. As our planet warms, more water evaporates, potentially creating more clouds. More cloud cover increases the Earth's brightness, possibly helping to cool the planet. But clouds, and the small particles called aerosols that help them form, are climate wildcards. Many current climate models predict some cooling due to increased cloud cover. Will it be enough to significantly slow warming? Scientists are using NASA data to look for the answer. Further complicating the issue is that water vapor is actually the world's most abundant greenhouse gas. That's right, the same molecules that might cool the planet in cloud form actually warm it when they're in the form of a gas. They help create a blanket around the Earth, catching heat radiating from the planet's surface and trapping it within the atmosphere. As the planet warms, more water evaporates from the ocean, creating more of this heat-trapping greenhouse gas. Humans can't directly control the amount of water vapor in the air, but we can have a much greater impact on other major greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide is the second most prevalent greenhouse gas, and it's our biggest contribution to global warming. Fossil fuel burning releases large amounts of carbon dioxide into the air. NASA satellite instruments capture the infrared signature of carbon dioxide in the global atmosphere. They show a rise throughout the decade. NASA also monitors other greenhouse gases, such as methane, nitrous oxide, and CFCs. In recent years, CFCs have decreased. Methane and nitrous oxide are on the rise. Greenhouse gas is most likely the main contributor to current global warming. It's the key piece of the temperature puzzle, and it's unlocked the door to higher and higher temperatures. In 2010, it marks the end of the hottest decade we've recorded so far. What will the next 10 years hold for the Earth's climate? computer models predict an even warmer planet, with more extreme weather, less ice, and higher seas. The severity of those changes will depend partly on how our planet's complex system responds, and more importantly, on what choices we make.
In conclusion, global warming is a really bad thing. You guys have learned this during the entire video. There's some actions that you can take to prevent global warming from becoming more dangerous than it already is, and I'd take advantage of that if I were you.